In Greek mythology, the Cyclopes were giants with a single eye in the center of their forehead. They forged weapons for the gods, built towering walls, and terrified mortals with their monstrous gaze. For centuries, scholars have debated whether the Cyclops was purely a creature of imagination, or whether the legend grew from something far more real. What if the Cyclopes were not myth at all, but distorted memories of encounters with extinct hominids or even the fossilized remains of ancient giants? Let us begin with the bones. In the Mediterranean, long before modern archaeology, shepherds and farmers stumbled upon enormous skulls buried in caves. These skulls belonged to mammoths and mastodons, prehistoric elephants that once roamed Europe. Their skulls had a large central cavity where the trunk attached, a gaping hole that two ancient eyes looked like a single eye socket. To a villager who had never seen an elephant, the conclusion was obvious. A race of one-eyed giants must have lived here. Thus, fossils may have seeded the Cyclops myth. But there is another possibility, one even stranger. What if ancient humans, or their ancestors, did, at times, cross paths with other hominid species cousins, now extinct? Ossifitors seem so different that they became the basis of monstrous legends. Consider Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit, discovered on the Indonesian island of Flores. This species stood barely 3 feet tall and lived as recently as 50,000 years ago. Now imagine early seafarers encountering these tiny hominids. To them, they might have seemed like a different race altogether. If such encounters happened in remote places, why not others with hominids larger, stranger, perhaps even with facial deformities that made them appear one? Pathology gives us hints. Some skulls from both ancient and modern times show evidence of cranial abnormalities, birth defects, bone adhesiases, or injuries can distort the skull, shifting or enlarging features. A damaged skull discovered by chance could look like evidence of a one-eyed giant. To people without medical understanding, such remains would confirm myths already whispered in the dark. Yet, mythology does not always sprout from misunderstanding alone. The Cyclopes in Homer's Odyssey were not merely bones or stories, they were characters described with vivid detail, living in remote caves, herding sheep, and showing both brute strength and human. Like Beabior, could such vivid storytelling have been inspired by real encounters with surviving hominids, Denisovans, or others who lived alongside early humans for tens of thousands of years? Neanderthals, for example, were shorter but stockier than modern humans, with heavy brows and powerful builds. To an ancient storyteller, such beings could be exaggerated into giants. The Denisovans, known only from fragments of bone and teeth, may have been equally formidable. Myths often exaggerate the unfamiliar, turning neighbors into monsters. Perhaps the Cyclopes were a way of remembering a time when we were not alone. Even the detail of the single eye might not be pure invention. Warriors often wore helmets with narrow visors, creating the illusion of a single glaring eye. Encounters with strangers dressed in unusual gear could seed the image. Or, if myths arose from distorted mammoth skulls, the two traditions, fossils and folk memory of other hominids, could have merged, solidifying into the Cyclops we know today. The symbolism of the single eye is powerful. It suggests focus, intensity, and divine perception. In myth, the Cyclopes were not only monsters, but also craftsmen, forging thunderbolts for Zeus and weapons for gods. Their one eye could be a metaphor for vision that pierces reality, a mark of power as much as deformity. Yet symbols often cling to reality, and reality may have been shaped by bones, encounters, and memories of other species that once walked beside us. So what if Cyclopes were based on encounters with extinct hominids? Then the myth is not merely fantasy, but a distorted echo of deep human history. It would mean our ancestors carried stories of neighbors who were like us, yet different enough to inspire awe and fear. It would mean that myth preserves not only moral lessons, but also anthropology, whispering across millennia that we were never the only human beings on this planet. And perhaps that is the deepest truth of the Cyclops. A reminder that humanity is not one story, but many. A tapestry of species, some remembered in stone, others in they etch, and a few perhaps still waiting to be discovered.